Welcome back. I really shouldn't say that. I have no idea if you saw the previous video or if you're going to be watching any of the other videos. But that's what people usually say when they get in front of a camera for the next part of the series, and who am I to break from tradition? We're going to look at the Hack Me again, and this time we're going to go to the envelope. Now, the basic idea behind the envelope is that we're controlling the amplitude of the waveform over time based on the key press on the keyboard. So when we press the key, we want to have some kind of ramp up of the amplitude for our signal out, then possibly decay down to a sustain value. Hold at the sustain value as long as the note is pressed, and then when the note is released, have some kind of release effect. Normally, with a Casio keyboard, it's note on, note off. You press the key and the note starts immediately. You let go, the note stops immediately. You can add envelope control for the instrument that you're trying to reproduce, but for the most part there's no velocity sensing, there's no aftertouch, and you can't change that envelope. With a synthesizer, a envelope synthesizer like what we have here, the entire point is to be able to change the attack, decay, sustain, and release. For the Hack Me, the settings are attack, decay, sustain, release. This only works with the Hack Me, with the Rocket, if we have a keyboard connected. Now I'm going to shift my octave. And this is the one nice thing about having a MIDI controller keyboard. You can change the octave, you don't have to worry about using the wrong end of the keyboard when you have a video camera set up like this. Okay. Alright, now if the settings are pure on, pure off, attack is at 0, decay is at 0. Actually, decay doesn't really matter because sustain is at 100%, and then release is at 0. Okay, very, very simple. Attack controls how quickly the amplitude changes right after you press the note. Now, I could get the same effect if I turned the master volume down. Rather than do that, rather than manually control the master volume, attack will slowly ramp up the amplitude of the waveform. Sustain is the value that the synthesizer will hold at for amplitude after reaching the attack value. So if sustain is set to 0, when I press the note, the amplitude of the signal will go from 0 to 100%, hit 100%, and then drop down to the sustain value 0. If I change sustain, the hold value changes. Decay changes how quickly we go from 100% to sustain. If I change attack in combination with sustain, and decay, I get different effects. So if I bring sustain back up, you may not be able to hear it, but there's still a value there. And then release, as the name implies, controls how long the note continues playing after I let go of the key. Now, there's a little bit more going on here than I've talked about so far. And that is when you use the keyboard, what it's doing is sending a MIDI signal to the synthesizer, but that MIDI signal isn't saying anything about what kind of note to make or what the waveform is going to be and so on. So what does the keyboard do? For the most part, very, very little. There is the option of choosing the port number, so I can have up to 16 different synthesizers hooked up. Okay, fine. MIDI says what port I'm sending the note information to. Then the note number, and if I change the octave, the note number being sent for a specific key is going to change. So the synthesizer is receiving a note number, and that note number is then interpreted to mean a particular frequency, usually based on piano keys. But we also have note on, note off. On, off. On, off. So if I set my attack to 0, my sustain to full, release to 0, note on, note off, and the note number. That's it. That's what the keyboard does. The keyboard sends information to the synthesizer. The synthesizer then creates the sound based on the front panel settings, in the case of the Rocky. Now there is a little bit more going on here. some keyboards have velocity sensing. So the velocity is sent to the synthesizer along with the note number, note on. And then we also have our beloved pitch bend. Now, right now, I'm thinking that the Rocket doesn't interpret aftertouch. I need to double check that. But this particular keyboard does send aftertouch, which varies the pitch based on how hard I press the key after initially pressing it, but before letting go. In terms of what this means between the keyboard and the synthesizer, the keyboard is sending note on, note off, and the envelope generator sees that as a gate signal. The gate signal is saying, start the envelope. Start the envelope. Stop the envelope. So note on, note off is interpreted by the synthesizer to be start of gate, end of gate. Summarizing, what we have is the oscillators, the envelope. Envelope gives us attack, decay, sustain, release based on note on, note off from the keyboard. And that's it for this part.